Hello YouTube, my name's Sean Connors. Apologies for the plane going overhead, but hey, that's videotaping for you. Today I'm going to be talking about D&D Next. Now, I need to give you a little bit of background before I do, because I think that puts everything into perspective. And hopefully will lay out my reasonings behind what I'm going to say. I'm going to try and come from D&D Next from a different position than most people have already talked about it. At this stage, I'm not going to dissect the rules too much, but what I want to do is sort of talk about some of the stuff I see in between the lines, the stuff that's not been talked about yet, that I think is pretty exciting about this edition. But before we do, I think we need to look at my own personal story. And each of you will be different. So think about your own personal journey here. Mine starts 30 years ago, almost, and that gives you an idea of where I started off. So I'm used to sort of D&D Red Box, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm used to that. Now, I embraced that edition. That was the edition I was brought up on. That was my role-playing game of choice, bar none. And I played that for about 10 or so years. Now, when we came to the end of that, second edition sort of came in. Did I buy second edition books? No. Did I embrace second edition? Not at all. The reason being that I'd already written a load of my own house rules around first edition D&D. I didn't want second edition. I wasn't interested in second edition. It felt like even more of a patchwork quilt of rules to me, so I decided no thanks. That's not what I want to do, and I carried on. Now, I didn't skip a beat, and I don't think Dungeons & Dragons minded, because I still bought many of the products. I still bought modules and bits and pieces that I could use and bastardise to my own heart's desire, so no problem. Then third edition came along. Obviously, in between this, I've bought many games, but I always come back to what I call high fantasy. High fantasy is my system of default choice, and if you watch my AV videos, you'll understand the reason why a lot of us probably do that. Third edition came through, and it did do some things pretty uniquely. The one area I always was concerned about with third edition is if you've again watched my AV series, you'll understand the continuum of crunchiness has continued on into third era and beyond into Pathfinder. And my concern was that once you start going down that track and games follow that pattern, then it's more difficult to pull players back to a different way of thinking. And you're going to see that in this next edition. Pardon the pun, but you are going to see that quite a lot. The difficulty of pulling players who've currently played 4th, and that's all they've known, into D&D Next is going to be quite a tough transition. And people who've played Pathfinder are going to find that struggle to pull into it, because it's a different breed entirely. But that's a video for another time. But in essence, that's my little story. So I played 3rd edition, loved it, and then quickly they moved to 3.5, and that really annoyed me. It really bugged me, because I spent a lot of money in 3rd edition. But I embraced it, I accepted it, and I could see the reasons why they made the choice, so I thought, okay, fair enough, I went with it. Then 4th edition came through really quite quickly, and I looked at 4th, played it for a few months, and it just was not for me. It wasn't for me, it wasn't for my groups, it was just horrible, we hated it. And I don't want to get into an edition war here, I'm not saying that I hated it just because I'm a 4th edition hater. I hated it because I just didn't like it. It didn't work for my groups, and that's the reason why it just didn't take off for us. So, let's park that to one side, and let's move on to what's more important, D&D Next. Now, what doesn't help the starting point is that there was a massive crash on the day of release. So to get hold of the free documents, and mustn't lose sight of the fact it's all free, took a few days for most people. I was very fortunate that, I had some inside help, to be perfectly honest with you, and eventually got hold of the documents, and I massively appreciate that support and that help. But a lot of people didn't, and so that again doesn't help, because obviously their perception is going to be quite badly tarnished even before they look at the damn thing, so it's going to hurt. So finally I get the documents in my hands, and I begin to read it through, and I've got every reason to not want to like this product. I really do, and probably like yourselves, every reason to want to hate this thing. But I don't. I actually really like it. I like it for loads of reasons. But I'm going to talk about specifically the ones between the lines here, the ones that really matter to me. I think, personally, I don't think it's any. I mean, you'll read different forum and depending where you go, you'll hear a mountain of negative press, which is incredible, quite frankly, because they've obviously not playtested it, and that frustrates the life out of me. But why I like it? Well, simply put, it's these following reasons. It's got something going for it that it's this little quantifiable point that I really love. that it's actually really quite a simple mechanic, advantage and disadvantage mechanic. I don't want to go into too much here, but simply put, it's as following. An advantage gives the player two rolls, and a disadvantage gives the player 2 rolls, and you take either the best of the 2 rolls if it's an advantage, or the worst of the 2 rolls if it's a disadvantage, and this plays for the enemy as well. That is a simple mathematical equation that solves a lot of problems. And it's actually really clever, because if you've used any stuff, and I'm not a fan of the APG from Pathfinder, but there are a number of things in there that force the player to take 2 rolls. It's really difficult if you're taking 2 rolls as a disadvantage to succeed. It's really tough, because the odds are against you. And equally, it's much more likely you'll succeed when you have the advantage. So that in its own right is a very, very clever little mechanic that they've incorporated into the core system. So I really like it and embrace it. And there's so many ways that it can be used quickly and swiftly, and they've done that even in the little playtest document. They've done that effortlessly well, and as a DM it's quite easy to actually see it in action and play, and easy to work out. So for example, you know, one of the ones they use it in is when people are firing into combat, you get to roll 2 dice and take the worst. That's actually quite a nice simple solve. Or you want to load and fire a crossbow in the same round. You can, but you fire at disadvantage. I love that. I think that's neat, that's simple. Players got the choice. Really good. And you know, maybe they'll pull it off, maybe they won't. So you know, for me, that's a big thumbs up. You know, that's a very nice way out of trouble. If you were trying to describe it, it's actually not. I've heard people say, you know, it's like 3.5, it's like Pathfinder. No, it's not. No, not at all. It's recognisable D&D. Let's not forget something here. Pathfinder is Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 engine. Don't try and make it out to be something it's not. So, the truth is, Next is a convoluted, sorry that's the wrong word, but Next is an evolution of itself. So it is engrossing, it is embracing the various editions. It is embracing a bit of 4th, it is embracing a bit of 3, whatever the version. It is embracing a bit of 2nd and 1st. There is little embracements in there. And the scope allows the GM to mould it to his or her liking, and you can see how that can be done. And you can see how you do or do not need to use a battle map, but it's there if you want to. For my taste and my take on it, I think that I would use a battle map, personally, because most of the groups I've had have been brought up. I've got groups that have run right the way from 1st edition. But one of the problems is, although they're old school players, they've been brought up into a modern way of thinking. Because we all have, we've been brought that way up now. So would we embrace going back to without using a battle map? I could do it, yes. But would my players happily do it? No. Because they like to know exactly where they are. They like to know and see things that they can visualise off the battle map. It does help with their visualisation of the game. So it would be a very tough sell. But I like the fact it's there if you want to embrace it. Particularly for those type of people who are out there who want to go back to the roots of the game and go back to the very beginning. Nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's great. It's great. A lofty ambition and achievable. And I don't think they've achieved it by dumbing anything down. In fact, actually, I think they've been very clever because there are a lot of options here. And I can see we're going to have to break this video into a couple of parts. So I think what I'll do here is, as we're up to about the 8:30 mark, I think I'll bring this part to a close, and what we'll do, we'll pick up the next video. We're talking about what I believe, reading in between the lines, is going to be one of the most exciting concepts of D&D Next. So I'll leave you there. But my name has been Sean Connors, this has been about D&D Next. Until the next time, happy gaming, take care of yourselves, and see you then. Bye-bye.